does Ivan's 30-second method to learn any static skill work? You guys loved the video, had a ton of questions about it, so we're going to go over that. But also, does the method work and will I continue using it? And honestly, the results shocked me a little bit, but let's go over the training. So if you're new here, just a quick catch up on the method. So there's 2 parts to the method. The first part, Ivan stated in my interview with him that one of the best ways to learn planche when you are using combinations, which I am, is push up, press to hold. The second part is the main method, which is the 30-second accumulation part. In this part, you're going to do attempts or hold that static skill, accumulating 30 seconds total time and attention. So if you do 1 attempt and it's 3 seconds, okay, then you have 27 seconds left before you finish your workout. You're trying to accumulate 30 seconds over, the training session with about, I think he said, maximum of 10 minutes rest in between those attempts. So first things first is the warm-up, especially for beginners. So I spent a lot of time warming up because I was just coming out of competition. I was in a competition last weekend and my body is still recovering. So I have a little bit of tricep tendonitis. I also have a palm bruise from skateboarding and my wrist is kind of aching from skateboarding. So I was taking my time with the warm-up. Ivan suggested doing shoulder and wrist rotations, getting everything mobile, then 10 dips and pull-ups just to activate the muscles. And since I can already handstand, he also hugely suggested doing some handstand work to warm up the shoulders perfectly for planche. So that's exactly what I did, doing a little bit of one-arm planche, but again, that bruise on my palm was aching, so I didn't do too much of that, but I did warm up my shoulders very, very well. So first up is Ivan's favorite combination, the push-up, press to hold, all in planche. So if you're at the stage where you're learning combinations, this is the method that Ivan suggested to start off with, is the combination part. If you're not sure whether you should be training combinations or not, you should check out the last video where I did an interview with Ivan, because we go over all of that, and I do agree with Ivan on when you should start training combinations or when you should do the classic sets and reps or sets and hold for planche. But in any case, this is a week after my competition. I'll put it on screen. I had the regional competition in the UK, which I won, but I was doing some of the hardest combinations I've ever done. So this was going to be hard. First training session back, and I was needing to do push-up to press. So Ivan really likes this method because it has the concentric from the push-ups and the press, it has an eccentric from the negative, and it has an isometric from the planche hold. So it has all 3 put together, which you can control and focus on different parts or increase reps. So for me, usually I focus on push-up, hold, then press, but this is the first session back, so I took it easy. It was not the cleanest or the strongest I felt, but I was happy to do this, a week after the competition where I'm still feeling tired and have the tendonitis. So I was still pretty happy with a lot of this that I was doing. I was also doing pull combinations. Again, this was nothing too crazy, just an introduction into getting back into training after a week off. Now that I was done with combinations, it was time to move on to the accumulation part of the method, which is accumulating 30 seconds, and I cannot stop until I get that full 30 seconds time and attention. So for me, I rested anywhere between 3 minutes and a half to 5 minutes between these specific combinations, because they're not that long combinations, and right now my endurance is pretty good, so it's not really the endurance that was the hard bit, and I felt ready to go really after just a minute's rest, but I didn't want anything to really interfere with my strength, and I wanted to that fatigue, you build up acute fatigue after a set, and wanted that to diminish as much as possible before my next set. So that's why I rested a little bit longer than really needed. But for Ivan, he said anything under 10 minutes is perfect for these attempts. So between every set of combinations, I think I did about 4 or 5 sets total. Now for the accumulation method, where we're trying to get that 30 seconds, I rested only like about 2 minutes and a half, especially because I was using it in a band, because I did the combinations first. So I decided to use a band because I wanted the quality to be quite good for these. I just did 2 minutes because I'm using a band. But if you're doing attempts, let's say you're doing straddle planche and you're doing attempts, trying to accumulate 30 seconds total for that session, then you can rest longer. okay, but 10 minutes maximum. So this is not my regular training style, is doing this sort of accumulation. I like to accumulate volume, but in a different way. And if you guys want me to explain that a little bit more, that is something for a different video, but leave a comment down below if you want me to explain that kind of thing. Now, after the accumulation method, I still had more energy. So I decided to not just end the workout there, I decided to add a little bit more work on certain power moves. So this was things like one-arm planche, which I haven't done in over a month now because I was getting pain in my lat and just lacking mobility, and it was just, you know, it was kind of just destroying me a little bit because it was such an intense move and I was doing it quite often. So I got very strong in it, but it was honestly the lat pain that was just killing me. So I had to stop for a bit and focus on the competition, because, you know, you can only do one arm planche so many times in a competition. You can't just spam it and win the competition. So I had to focus more on my actual endurance. So this is me getting back into it. And honestly, the hardest part for me in one arm planche is just entering and getting into the position. So also, if any of you want to work on one arm planche, again, let me know. I can do some sort of, maybe not a guide, because I haven't really mastered it yet. I've only done 4 seconds or 5 seconds max with good form. But again, if you want me to break down learning the one arm planche and how I did it to get to at least this stage, or the stage I was at about, you know, a month ago, then again, I can do that. Just leave a comment and, you know, it'll help me with the ideas on what you guys actually want to see. Now, to finish off the workout after the power moves, I just finished with Ivan's conditioning protocol, which was, he loves doing like tricep exercises after a lot of the heavy bicep engagement movements like Maltese and wide planche and regular planche and supinated planche. So he loves attacking the other side, the antagonist. So in planche, we're using a lot of the biceps. He will do a lot of tricep extensions. He even suggested, you know, dips, things like this, military press with a band, all to work on the antagonist muscle, so you're balanced in both sides of the arm basically. Overall, I did some conditioning for my tricep tendonitis, some dips with protraction, and also I did some dumbbell work on the floor as well, just for my straight arm conditioning, my tricep tendon and my bicep tendon. Now let's go over the positives and negatives of the method. Also, will I keep using it, and what shocked me about the method, and then finally I'll also talk about who I think this method is truly for and if you'll benefit from it. Firstly, the combinations. Of course, combinations are good. You need the parts of a combination before you start putting them together. If you haven't got your push-ups, your press, your hold, or even in front lever or in back lever or something like that, you can only focus on the hold and you can't do the presses or the raises, then you're not going to benefit too much from the combination. So going on, so let's talk more about the 30-second accumulation method, because I think that's the more interesting part of this, because I think we all have heard of combinations before. So the 30-second accumulation method, the positives, okay? I feel like this is a really good way of thinking about your training. I think it changes people's perception from thinking about sets and reps. Okay, I just need to hold, you know, like 5 seconds on this set, 5 seconds on that set. Training in sort of this modern age is very much, you think one set at a time, which is not necessarily bad, but I think people forget about the bigger picture. All we're trying to do in training is give our body enough stimulus to change and adapt, okay? We're trying to say, hey body, we are doing this thing so often, you need to sort of improve and adapt in order so we can do this thing more efficiently. Point number 2 about this 30-second accumulation method. I do like that it can apply to any progression. So I did it with a band. I think the main idea here is that you do it either body weights or with a light band, so that the intensity is quite high, because obviously holding 30 seconds in maybe a heavy band is very different to holding 30 seconds accumulated with a light band. So the idea here is the intensity is pretty high, okay, which helps you get used to and break that mental barrier of holding something that's intense. Or let's say you're just getting used to straddle planche, you use this 30-second accumulation method to just get used to using your own body weight, because maybe you used bands a lot in the past. It could be a great way for breaking that mental barrier that, oh, using my body weight, oh, that's pretty heavy. Over time, I could see someone that is more intermediate really benefiting from this method, because they get used to using their own body weight, which is the whole point of this sport, is eventually getting pretty conditioned to your body weight, depending on what you're learning, obviously, but the main idea is that we use our body weight. Third thing I liked is I liked that it was 30 seconds. 30 seconds I think is a good amount of time for the session. It didn't necessarily feel too overwhelming, like, oh, a minute or something like that. It felt like 30 seconds, quite doable. I guess this kind of, I'll talk about the negative here, which is for SAT. For me, learning SAT, this is my first session really training it again in about 2 to 3 months, and it was tough. So depending on what stage you're at and what skill it is and the intensity, whether you're using assistance or not, it could take you a long time to get that 30 seconds. While the planche, the supinated planche, it only took me a couple sets. I have done it in competitions. I only really do it when I'm training for competitions, to be honest, which is why I'm working on it more now. So that is the first negative, is the amount of time it took me to actually complete these 30 seconds with push and pull on the same day, which is how I like to train. It took a lot of time. So that is a negative for me, at least. And finally, if you want to join my athlete team and be one of the people that I coach in these static skills, then click the link down below and you can reach out through the coaching application form. We'll have a discussion there about your training and take it from there. Also, with the bars I was using for the combination training, they were awful. It feels like every single gravity fitness piece of equipment, they fall apart. Like, it's almost guaranteed at this rate. My dip bars, which are metal and bolted on, I don't know how one is sideways. How does that even happen? So many times where I train at that gym, I actually bring my coordination dip bars to that gym just because they are actually straight and, you know, they don't wobble, they don't fall apart. So again, if you guys are interested in calisthenics equipment and you're not sure what to use, I suggest Gornation. It's what I trust, and I've never had a problem with my Gornation equipment. So again, you can use my code JACK10 for the Gornation equipment, but I just thought I'd show you this with the Gravity Fitness bars. A lot of them fall apart. I am not a fan. I have had a thought of doing a calisthenics brand tier list, something like that. I don't know if that's interesting, but going through the different brands and what I think of them, what I think they can do to improve the sport as well. If you want to see that, obviously just leave a comment. And if you want to be one of the athletes I train and coach in a lot of these static skills that you're seeing on screen, then just click the link down below and submit a coaching application form. We'll talk on a call and see if you're a good fit for, again, my athlete team. So